Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, my name is Bongi and thank you so very much for stopping by. I hope that you'll find this channel interesting enough for you to subscribe and join us every Friday as we talk about true crime cases from literally all over the world. Today we're going to be talking about the case of Shelley Dunn, which took place on the 14th of February 2010 all the way in Georgia in the United States. The year is 2007 and high school sweethearts Chad Dunn and Shelley Dunn had just pretty much gotten married. They're now living together and raising their two daughters together. But their marriage was not really all roses and petals. They were struggling a bit. Chad was very possessive. He was jealous. He felt like he had built his entire life around Shelley, so he wanted Shelley's life to be centered around him as well. So he was just very overbearing, very controlling. He controlled every single move that Shelley did, controlled who she saw, when she saw that person, and basically isolated her from the world. They were always indoors, and whenever Shelley stepped out, Chad wanted to know, where's she going, who's she meeting up with, are you even sleeping with that person? He was just very jealous and possessive. He isolated Shelley so much to the point where Shelley even started losing friends, and I'm assuming that she was annoyed by this whole thing because this man is just too overbearing and she cannot do anything. They also worked together in the same workplace. They worked in the factory together, so it was almost as if they were together 24/7, which I think could annoy anybody, would get on anyone's nerves. They were always home together, and then when they left for work they would leave together and then work together and then come back home together. It's just an unbearable cycle. This in turn put a lot of strain on their marriage. Their relationship was an unhappy one, and you know, they were both, I think Chad was doing way too much. He was trying to keep Shelley with him, but in turn he was pushing her away from him. This put a lot of strain in their marriage, as I have already said, and Chad could notice this, he could see this, and so he turned to alcohol. This is when he started drinking, but the excessive drinking did not help at all. If anything, it made things worse. Over the next few years, the couple would grow apart. Shelley became so discontent with her marriage that she actually decided to look for contentment outside of her marriage, so she befriended a co-worker named Travis. Even though she worked at the same factory with Chad, they worked on different lines, but she actually worked on the same line with Travis, so this meant that they got to interact more often at work, and as such, you know, spending so much time together, the both of them ended up being attracted to one another as time went on. They became closer and closer, and even though she was trying to keep their relationship, or their friendship rather, because at this point it was just a friendship, even though she was trying to keep the friendship under wraps because of Chad's controlling and overbearing ways, Chad did come to know of this friendship. I mean he's always watching her because of his jealousy, so he did come to know of this friendship and he grew extremely jealous. He was getting very suspicious of Travis and Shelley's relationship, so one day he decided to approach Travis in the factory parking lot to find out what exactly was happening between him and his wife. Travis tells him that they're just friends, but Chad still suspected that they were sleeping together, so he intimidates Travis a little bit and tells him to stay the hell away from his wife, and Travis just says, you know what, okay, cool, and decides to do just that. But it was getting hard. It was difficult for them to stay apart because they had both developed some feelings for one another. I think Travis was a nice guy. I think he offered Shelley everything that she didn't have with Chad, and I think that is what made her actually fall in love with Travis, because Travis paid attention to her, Travis listened to her. Travis was this friendly person, this nice person who gives her space, who lets her breathe, and I think that that is what made her fall in love with Travis. Maybe fall in love is a reach, but still I think that's what made her develop these feelings for Travis. After a while of avoiding each other and trying so hard to stay away from each other, they failed. So they started talking again, and I think you know, they were bound to talk about why they initially stopped talking. So that's when Travis decided to tell Shelley that Chad is the reason why they had stopped talking. Chad approached him in the parking lot, threatened him, and also told him to stay away from Shelley. And obviously Shelley became furious. She was furious because this is somebody who has been controlling her so much, but now it was like the final straw. You have intimidated this person that I have developed these feelings for, this person who's like everything you're not, this person that I've grown to like so much. You went to them and you threatened them, and you actually thought you could control me that much that you could actually tell people to stay away from me. She was furious, obviously. So anyways, Shelley is annoyed by Chad's controlling ways, right? So on the evening of January 31st, 2010, she decides to confront Chad about the entire situation. So I'm guessing this confrontation was not at all a peaceful one from the beginning of the conversation all the way till the very end of the conversation. I'm guessing it was an actual argument whereby people were literally throwing, not literally, but throwing verbal punches. But whether or not it was the argument that I think it was, Shelley does end up telling Chad that she has developed some feelings for Travis. And Chad, obviously, it's a no-brainer at this point that Chad does not take this well at all. He went crazy. He went ballistic on Shelley. They fought and fought and fought, and he ended up actually choking Shelley. He strangled Shelley. Shelley was obviously fighting back, you know, so she's fighting back, Chad is fighting her, she's fighting back, Chad is strangling her, she's trying to push her, she's trying to push him off her. And during this altercation, Shelley's arm was pushed into the fireplace and got burned so bad to the point where she later was transported to the ER. Anyway, she still manages to put on this fight against Chad because obviously she didn't know what Chad was going to do to her, and you can imagine the sheer fear that she was actually experiencing at this moment, because I'm guessing this was probably the first time that Chad had actually been physical with her. She somehow managed to slip through Chad's grip and immediately ran out of the house and off to safety. And by safety, I mean her home. She went to her stepmother's home. So her family rushed her to the ER where her injuries were treated. The skin on her burn had completely been burnt off, and there were marks on her neck indicating that somebody had strangled her or choked her. And it was pretty clear to the hospital staff that these injuries had been inflicted by another person, and so they were obligated by law to call the police. Shelley was scared at first, but once the police had arrived, she managed to go through with reporting the assault. Chad was immediately arrested and charged with aggravated assault and aggravated battery. While behind bars, it seems that Chad started feeling bad, and he actually wrote an apology/suicide letter to Shelley. He wrote this letter where he was both apologizing and also blaming Shelley for him taking his own life. Officials did find this letter and they took him to a hospital for a mental evaluation. He was ruled mentally fit, so this led police to think that this was just another one of his schemes, another one of his ploys to try and win Shelley back. Abusive people, I think abusive people and toxic people tend to do this a lot. They gaslight a lot, so I think he wanted Shelley to think, I'm gonna end my life if you don't forgive me, if you don't get back together with me, I'm gonna end it all, it's all your fault. But if you take me back, we can be happy, I can fix things, we can work on things, and our relationship will be good as new. I think he wanted to manipulate her into taking him back, and he wasn't actually gonna go through with it. That is what I think, and that is what officials were thinking at this point, because he had been ruled mentally fit. But Shelley at this point was certain that she was over this relationship. She had gotten her abuser arrested, and she could now get the freedom that she wanted, which I think she was really happy about. She actually started to plan her life without Chad, and she started making plans for the future, for her and her children's future. And of course, this future involved Travis, but Travis was not entirely having it, because he had a problem with them starting on a clean slate, or them starting this relationship while Shelley still lived in the same house that she and Chad shared. So he told Shelley that, I have a problem with this thing, I think you should move out if you really want to start a life with me, if you really want to start afresh on a clean page, start a new chapter where it's Shelley and Travis and not Shelley and Chad, you know. You know, in as much as he also had feelings for Shelley, I think he had set certain boundaries for himself, and I think he knew he would technically still be having an affair with a married woman, but Shelley moving out of her home with Chad would sort of make him see that Shelley was willing to leave Chad for him and to start a life with him instead. So that's when Shelley decided that it was probably time for her to take her children and move out, and obviously she reached out to Travis to help her with the move. Travis was actually really helpful with the move. He gave her a phone for her to use to call him whenever she needed help, any time of the day, and he also lent her, I don't know if he lent her this money, borrowed her this money, or gave it to her, but he gave her $500 for her to pay the movers. On Wednesday the 10th of February, so it's been 2 weeks since the whole incident between Shelley and Chad took place, Shelley calls Travis and she tells him, hey look, I'm done moving into my new place, I'm thinking maybe we should hang out. And Travis was obviously ecstatic. He also wanted to move out, and the couple actually ended up spending the night together and they had coitus. They solidified their relationship. They put a stamp on it. By this time, Chad had been arrested for 2 weeks, like I said, and he was not at all happy with both Shelley and Travis. Coincidentally, he was released on bail that very same night. The same night Shelley decided to spend the night with Travis. The same night Shelley finished moving in to her new place, Chad was released from prison. So he makes his way to him and Shelley's home, right? He makes his way. He's probably like I don't know, but he's making his way back to him and Shelley's place, and when he gets there, he's met by his new reality. He gets there and he finds that all Shelley's stuff is gone. All of her stuff, all of their children's stuff, everything is gone. And I think this just makes him realize his biggest fear, actually, that he has indeed lost Shelley. So once Chad realizes his new reality, right, he starts thinking about ways in which he could win Shelley back. He starts planning his next move. Remember, this is somebody who wrote an entire suicide note to try and win Shelley back. Well, to allegedly try and win Shelley back. But now Shelley's gone. She has taken their children, and now he's just thinking, oh my god, I have to get her back, I have to get her back. And he's thinking about all these ways in which he could try to soften up the situation and win his high school sweetheart back. So he calls Shelley's stepmother and demands to see his children, right? And so the stepmother's like, okay, I'll talk to Shelley and we'll figure out a date. We'll figure out a day and you can come get your children, spend time with them, knock yourself out. And the day that they decide on this whole exchange, this whole custody exchange, is on the 13th of February. So on this day, Chad shows up to Shelley's stepmom's home for the kids. And it's officially the first time that he and Shelley are meeting since the whole incident on January the 31st. And Chad shows up with gifts and flowers. He's trying to win Shelley back. He probably got down on one knee, probably made some pathetic poem, I don't know, but he was doing everything in his power to try and win Shelley back. But Shelley stood her ground. She was now with Travis. She was happy. Like I said, Travis was like everything that Chad was not, everything that she had been trying to get away from and finally managed to get away from. So she stood her ground. She told him no. I don't think Chad was expecting to be rejected, because this completely pushed him off the rails. He realized now, like, of course him showing up to an empty home made him realize his new reality, but I think he still thought, oh, I can win her back if I work hard enough, if I buy her a gift, buy her a teddy bear, buy her chocolates, she will probably be my wife again. But now he was realizing that this is actually my reality. Shelley is not coming back. Shelley's not going to come back home to me, and I'm not going to be able to manipulate and control her anymore. So he goes off the rails. He takes the children and he drops them off at his mother's place and then heads to his place. And he actually spends the entire night just drinking himself out of his misery. But obviously this just made him go even crazier. It didn't make him forget. If anything, the scenarios just kept coming and coming and coming, and he realized that everything that I've been afraid of Travis sleeping with my wife, I've been afraid of me losing my wife, I've been afraid of my life falling apart, and now it is a reality. It's not just in my head anymore. Now it is actually happening. So he just drank the entire night. But for Shelley, things were going pretty good. It was a free night. The children were with their father, so this meant that she could spend more time with Travis. So again, they decided to spend a second night together as a couple. Travis actually gave her an early Valentine's Day gift. He gave her a bouquet of flowers and a teddy bear with a card written, "I love you." So as if their relationship wasn't already official, like this officiates everything, right? This is a big move. I love you, you said the L word, it's official. Following morning was officially Valentine's Day, but Chad was still indulging in excessive amounts of alcohol. But Shelley and Travis, on the other hand, were planning a romantic day ahead. They spent the morning together, and that very morning, as Chad was indulging, he received a call from Shelley. I'm thinking he must have thought, okay, Shelley had time to think about it. She's finally decided to fix things, right? He's happy, he's ecstatic. So he picks up the phone, but instead he hears muffled voices. He hears, like, Shelley's voice is muffled as if his number had been dialed by mistake. And as he was trying to listen some more, he actually realizes that he can hear a man's voice in the background. And this is not just any man, this is actually Travis's voice. So again, this just further pushes him off the rails. This just enraged him. We don't know what happened for the rest of the morning, but Shelley did end up calling Chad again in the afternoon to arrange for a meeting for her to pick up the kids. She wanted to meet in a public area because obviously she was scared of Chad, you know, so they both agreed to meet up at a Walmart parking lot. At around 3 p.m. Shelley arrived at the parking lot and saw Chad's mom's truck, pulling after her. She gets out of her car and waits for her children to get out of the truck, but instead Chad steps out alone, leaving the children in the truck. As he approaches her, he says the word Travis, to which Shelley just shrugs, and immediately a heated argument ensues. Witnesses could hear some people arguing, but a lot of them didn't think it was something serious, so they didn't pay much attention to it. One of the witnesses actually thought that it was a playful argument, considering that it was Valentine's Day and nobody was expecting to see a couple argue. Chad produced a knife from somewhere, and the moment Shelley saw this knife, she screamed, "Chad, no, Chad, stop." But Chad didn't listen to her. Chad grabbed Shelley, dropped her on the floor, and just began stabbing her. Shelley was stabbed 3 times in the back, and one of the stab wounds was actually so deep that the imprint of the handle of the knife was left on her back, and the other stab wound actually punctured her lung. Some witnesses tried to intervene, and I saw in one news report that Chad's mother had actually come with them, and she also tried to intervene, but they came too late, and Chad, after stabbing Shelley 3 times, turned the knife to himself and stabbed himself in the chest twice before collapsing next to her. So obviously at this point, other bystanders can see what is happening. Some of them who thought that this was a playful fight see that this is actually serious, so they start rushing towards the couple, and unfortunately by the time they got there, Shelley was already choking on her own blood and turning blue. 911 was called, and the police soon arrived with the ambulance. Shelley had a weak pulse, and she was already unconscious by the time the police arrived, so she was immediately rushed to the hospital. What breaks my heart is that the entire time, Shelley's 2 daughters, a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, were in the back of their father's truck the entire time. the entire time. They actually saw their father stab their mother and then turn the knife to himself. They witnessed this entire thing. You can imagine the trauma that these kids actually endured. And some of the witnesses that actually rushed to Shelley's aid said that they rushed there because they heard children screaming, "Daddy, Daddy," and they were probably screaming for their daddy to stop hurting their mommy. Chad was found lying on his stomach and struggling to breathe, and he too was transported to the hospital. He had suffered a cut about half an inch to an inch wide on his chest, which was considered not that serious. But anyways, he was treated for his injuries and released from hospital the following day. He was immediately charged with the first-degree murder of his 27-year-old wife, Shelley Dunn. The question was not whether he killed Shelley or not, because there were witnesses to attest to that, but rather it was whether it was malice murder or voluntary manslaughter. Malice murder is what we in my country, in our penal code, is just known as murder. Murder is when you intentionally cause the death of another person, and then a homicide is when you culpable homicide is when you negligently cause the death of another human being. But I'm thinking voluntary manslaughter is similar. Let's see. So while malice murder is intentionally causing the death of another human being, voluntary manslaughter is the killing of a human being in which the offender acted during the heat of passion under circumstances that would, cause one to crack under pressure, I'm thinking. So Chad's argument was that this was a crime of passion. He had just discovered that his wife was having an affair right after coming out of prison. It was just too much for him. This affair was taking place right under his nose. It was Valentines, man. This was a crime of passion. But a lot of people considered that it was malice murder. The prosecution actually also challenged his assertion, claiming that he had time to plan this. He planned this, and he actually had time to stop himself from causing the death of Shelley, but he chose not to. He actually chose to act on his plan to prove that this was indeed malice murder. There were obviously a couple of witnesses that were called to the stand, and unfortunately, the two young girls, Shelley's daughters, actually had to testify against their own father in a trial whereby their father has been accused of murdering their mother. After witnessing the ordeal that they had already witnessed, they also had to go through this. They clutched onto their teddy bears as they answered the questions. They were so brave. God bless their souls. God healed them. God rid them of the trauma that they endured. His eldest daughter, her name is Cheyenne, testified that her father, on the morning of Valentine's, told them that he was going to kill their mommy because she had killed him inside. If that is not intent, I don't know what is. This was on the morning of Valentine's, and this murder took place at like 3 p.m. 4 p.m. You had enough time to change your mind. You had enough time to think about another way to go about things, but you did decide to carry through what you had already planned and premeditated. I mean, Travis also took the stand, and when Travis took the stand, Chad actually couldn't hide his emotions towards Travis. He couldn't handle hearing Travis's testimony about what he was doing with his wife. He was visibly shaking and visibly getting angry, and although they couldn't tell whether he was gonna become violent or not, he was visibly in a state of emotional turmoil. So they fitted him with a electrified belt to restrain him in the event that he did get violent. 3 days after the trial started, the jury had reached its decision, and they found Chad guilty of murder in the first degree and guilty of 2 counts of child cruelty in the 3rd degree for stabbing Shelley in front of her 2 children, killing their mother right in front of them. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for his crimes. What are your thoughts about this case? Do you think that it was a crime of passion and they should have charged him with manslaughter instead, or do you think that he was correctly charged and correctly convicted? Do you have extra information also about this case? Because I did try my hardest. I tried so hard to find information, especially about Shelley's background, but I couldn't find anything to that effect. So if you guys have any information, please feel free to drop it in the comment section down below. I apologize if my voice sounds a bit off-ish because I am a bit sick. And yeah, we're back, and I'll see you guys next week Friday with another video. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and watch my other videos, because I have a plethora of bomb videos on my channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.